Hopefully you will not have issues. Let's hear that dulcet tones of your frog voice today. I really need to bring my campaign in. I have not been growing my account. Okay, and again, I need to be logging your campaign. So yeah, go ahead and bring it in. Welcome, Dr. A. How do you hear me? All right, for those of you that are watching on Facebook, welcome. This is The Reckoning, show number 323, and we will begin in about 14 minutes. Right now, we're getting set up. For those of you that follow me on X, I appreciate it. That's where you can actually interact with me. Nick is monitoring, of course, the chat, so if you have a question, put it in there, and he'll throw it up into the show notes where I can see it. But you can actually speak if you come into X and raise your hand. So, welcome. All right, Yeltsin 666, you're going to have to give us time to vet you. I'll tell you that anything with 666, I'm obviously going to be raising the flag real quick. Dr. A, how do you hear? Dr. A, I cannot hear you. All right. Hear you. All right. Yeah, I don't think so. All right, so Dr. A, I don't know what's going on with your mic, but I wish it would work. You might need to come in and out. Now, to be fair to you, I haven't checked for an update recently, but my phone is supposed to auto-update X. All right, standing by. Yeltsin 666, I'm not bringing you up. Sorry, brother. Got to get that 666 out of there. We don't play with the number of the beast on this show. Now, the good news is if that makes you mad, go start your own show. Not trying to be a jerk. It's just the way it is. Welcome, Southern. Glad to have you. Dr. A is having problems. Dr. A, I can't even see your mic right now. Hopefully it's not me. All right, Southern, how do you hear me? She might be lost in the translation. Southern, how do you hear me? Southern, how do you hear me?
I hear you great. How are you?
Good, good. How about you, Dr. A?
I hear you.
Okay, well, your voice doesn't sound as bad as you led me to believe. I was expecting a frog to be croaking at me. Warm tea.
I'm sipping.
As it should be. All right, Southern. So when last I left this drama, he had one, potentially two more games. If he won one more, he got to the championship. So how did it go?
So we ended up being fourth place.
Fourth place. So that means you probably lost to get to the game to the championship.
We lost 2 games before the championship. Because both times in the bracket, we ended up going against the first and second place team.
So just a bad run. That happens. So anyway, how was your weekend?
Eventful but kind of quiet. It was nice.
Eventful but kind of quiet. Usually those are oxymoronic. So
we had closing ceremony on Saturday morning, and then we had a car show that lasted all day. That was only supposed to be till like 1 o'clock.
A car show. Now, is that something you got drugged to, or you went to of your own free volition?
I went to on my own free will. I like classic cars.
Okay.
I don't like the newer ones that are all like jacked up and go vroom like loud. I like the old cars.
Okay. So for me, anytime that I had to drag her to something like that, but for example, I said, do you want to come to the Texas OU game with me? And she was like, yeah, but you're going to have to take me to the Ballet Folklorico or something like that. This was wife 1, and that's probably why we're not I'm just kidding. But no, new wife is very, very understanding. She hasn't made me go anywhere really except for Nebraska Furniture Mart, but that was actually beneficial to both of us because we hate our breakfast table. So we got to find a different one. What about you, Dr. A? What did you do this weekend? Nick, we're coming to you next.
Campaigning all weekend.
Campaigning. Oh, no. I'm shocked by that. So let me guess. Events at night and then meet and greets during the day. Are you up to 3 events a day or is it just 2?
I don't even know how to answer that question.
Too many to count, huh? All right. What about you, Nick? What did you do this past weekend?
This past weekend, we got back from Mighty Men Camp, 327 guys at camp doing the Warrior Games. And then was at church on Sunday serving in the bookstore from 7:30 in the morning till about 1:30 in the afternoon. And after that, it was focus on the family. Spend a lot of family time.
Yeah, it was funny. I got asked to text you, and I'm like, it's pointless to text Nick on a Sunday. Yeah, this is not going to happen. So I was like, I'll talk to him tomorrow morning. So Nick has a great rule for those of you with younger children, and that is Sunday he does not answer any business texts or anything like that. So I do not even bother to text Nick during a Sunday. And sure enough, I came in about 4 sentences, as only men can do. We sorted the 2 issues, and it was just all good. I didn't have to ask him how he felt about that or any such other nonsense. I'm kidding. Love my 2 co-hosts.
There you go. There you go. Let me be a little honest here. That's everybody. Like the watch gets taken off, the phone gets put down, it all goes into a drawer. Yep. That's family time.
No, I totally get it. And, it's kind of necessary. I think we had a rule where whoever looked at their cell phone first had to buy a round of drinks the last time we were all together. And so we're going to probably continue that rule as a family. So anyway, all right, guys, this is The Reckoning. It's 10:52. Rules of the space are quite simple. Don't talk over each other. If you've got a question, we encourage you to come up and actually ask it. I'd like to get back to a more interactive show, but we've just got a few people that like to listen, and that's fine too. Right now, we've only got 10 people on X, so honestly, I think we could all have you on stage, but, that's just the way that works. Now, obviously, we've got a few more people listening on Facebook. We're also on YouTube. Now, is it a rebroadcast on YouTube, or are we live streaming on YouTube?
We're going to be doing both.
Okay, cool.
Live stream and then repeat.
Okay, excellent. All right, so Dr. A, has there been any polling by you or your opponent or the Republican Party in your area?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. It's funny because I had a couple of people tell me about polls. We did one, and it had me, honestly, I think it was 54 to 46 is the poll. Now, we only had a 2-person race at the time, and then a 3rd person came in, and he took from me, which I think was the intent and why he was in the first place. But I've always believed that. I've just never been able to confirm it. So interesting that of the polls that were done, mine was the most accurate. Lesson to be learned there.
We're a 7-person race right now.
Yeah, I know but you've got those guerrilla primaries, and I hope the Democratic Party gets punished by the California voter. At some point they're going to have to. All right. The other rule of the show is no cussing. My mom does listen, and she appreciates that rule. All right. The question of the day, we'll go ahead and get to that just a little bit early, is what is your favorite candy bar? Now, growing up, I'm going to tell you, I think I liked a Baby Ruth. Was my favorite candy bar, but over time that has changed to where I don't really eat that many candy bars anymore. I'm more of a Reese's peanut butter cup guy when it gets there. And I just got told by Lindsay, who works here at Lovely Kinetic Curve Marketing, that the Nutrageous bar by Reese's is outstanding as well. And she handed me a piece of candy that says Unreal on it. Now, another favorite of mine was a Mounds bar. That's the one with coconut, right? Yeah, those are really good as well. All right, Southern, what about you?
I think it was called a whatchamacallit.
I remember that
I remember
one.
eating those a lot.
Okay.
And Kit Kats.
Yes, Kit Kats were a favorite as well because you get those when you couldn't get Reese's. What about you, Dr. A?
Used to be a Heath bar, but I don't eat them anymore. Now I just like an occasional piece of dark chocolate.
Got it. I understand. It's funny is I bought my mom for, Mother's Day, which is coming up, by the way, and I actually got her a pretty cool gift this time, but I won't talk more about that. I bought her some really expensive chocolates thinking she would like it, and she didn't like them at all. She just likes the plain, simple Hershey bar. And I think that generation of kids that grew up right after World War II has a special affinity for the Hershey bar. So, who knows why? It could be because of the GIs and the Hershey bars and then, the Candy Bomber and all those things. Who knows? But what about you, Nick? What was your favorite candy bar?
I know what goes in them, so I don't do Hershey's.
I got it.
Oh, man. I'm a Reese's peanut butter cup guy. What do you know that I don't want to know? I don't want to know what you know.
About Hershey's?
Yes.
Well, Hershey's is just one of those companies that I'm sure is minimizing things. What are they trying to kill us with now, Dr. A? Just give us the quick and dirty version.
It's not even real chocolate anymore.
Nice. Ugh. And, even though I know I'm basically eating mercury and other good things for me when I have Girl Scout cookies, but, I have to have the Samoas, which they have a new name now, I think. Caramel something or others. But, yeah, so the Girl Scouts still, extort me for about $10 a year. What about you? Do you still buy Girl Scout cookies Southern, or are those on the verboten list for you?
I'd still buy them. I don't always eat them, but I still buy them.
I get it. What about you, Dr. A?
No.
That's a hard...
I sold them for like 15 years, but they're so contaminated with glyphosate, I won't touch them.
No, I understand. I get it. I know why you don't do it. I totally understand. My logic is I've had so many Trons pumped through me by the U.S. military that I'm pretty sure it's not going to worry me one way or another. Go ahead, Texas Elizabeth. What's your favorite candy bar?
My homemade almond bark.
There we go. Now that sounds delicious. Homemade almond bark. Now, do you make a special Christmas version with like peppermint and white chocolate?
I can, but I've usually got so many cookies, pies going. I didn't have time to make all of that.
Well, I totally get it. What's funny is if I could bring back and eat one food that my grandmother used to make, it would honestly be a competition between two things that are just diametrically opposite. One is the Christmas fudge she used to make, which was just delicious and would melt in your mouth. And the other, I know it sounds crazy, and I am a Southern boy, but her fried okra was just outstanding. So anyway, that's just a couple of things that I missed about my grandmother Harlan. Hadn't thought about her in a while. All right,
well,
you
mentioned the Girl Scout cookie.
Yes. What's your favorite one?
Why? It used to be the butter cookie.
Okay.
I wouldn't buy a box of Girl Scout cookies now for love nor money. If you go back to the 70s and the 60s, when they were selling them for 50 cents a box, they had real ingredients in them.
I do have, I wonder why they do that to us. Let's be honest. If they said you can buy the current Girl Scout cookies for $5 or for $7, you can have one with real ingredients that are good for you, I bet you most Americans are going to choose the $7 box. So
yes, because they had the real peanut butter, real butter.
Yep.
I mean, it wasn't made by the fake crap they use today.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, my mother hated Girl Scout season, okay? And I have a picture of me in the newspaper because I had sold more than any other Girl Scout in the state of New Mexico.
Okay.
And that's when we took orders, and I would fill up 3 or 4 of those sheets.
Awesome. All right. Well,
I didn't take no for an answer.
Hopefully you did good and used that experience to be in sales in life. But we got to get started on the show. It is high noon Eastern Standard Time. This is The Reckoning, 27 April 2026, show number 323, and 1 hour of unfiltered political truth starts now. Now, today is another one of those days where I'm not quite sure which direction to take the rant. We will obviously talk about the 4th assassination attempt. Actually, Dr. A has told me it's more, so I'll ask her for her help on the additional ones on President Trump's life and Democratic violence. But there are other things going on in the world as well, and we'll cover those. We're going to get to the economics of our war with Iran, as well as the upcoming war between Great Britain and Argentina. We'll also try and wrap the show on time today so that everyone can catch Carolyn Levitt's press conference. Now, in today's world, we're increasingly told that slavery is freedom, that war is peace, and that lies are truth. I started this show while under house arrest to tell the truth, and I hope to always do that. I want you to think about how far lies and untruths have crept into our society. When I was a child, nobody would have even thought to question that there were only two sexes. Never would we have thought that Islam should enjoy the same place as Christianity in our nation's pantheon of religion. Never would we think that an election for the presidency could actually be stolen, and yet it was. I often wonder if we are simply living in the end times. Is the book of Revelations fulfilling itself? I honestly think that we are. So what can you do about it? First of all, prepare yourself to undergo ill treatment at the hands of the Democrats if they're successful in stealing the next election. They are actively saying they are going to put us in camps. All right, for those of us that have already resisted them once, I guarantee you I'm gone. And I just live with that. And I know that law enforcement will side with the oppressor. They always do. Our sheriff is worthless. He let the FBI come and take Stewart Rhodes. He will not defend us. We have got to get a better sheriff in Denton County. Now, the time for us being spectators in the sport of our government, I've said long ago, that is over. If you don't see it, I don't know how to make you see it. The enemy, the Democratic Party, and their master Satan want you under their thumb. You must resist. I've told you how to get active in local Republican politics. You must also vote in biblical people. They are trying to take your children from you. School board elections. We need every candidate for the school board ask, are you going to allow filth in our public libraries? Or are you going to stand firm in biblical principles? Town councils. We don't want any more mosques in our cities. Stand strong for your faith. If a politician is unable to tell you that they serve a risen Savior, they are not fit to hold public office, and they do not deserve your vote. If a man cannot profess what is supposed to be central in his heart, he does not deserve your vote. But you have to be even a little bit more discerning than that, because there are plenty of politicians that wear the Bible as a cloak. Now, the Bible says, be wise as a serpent, does it not? You have to look through what the man says to their actions. Just recently, our local state representative bragged about assisting in putting the 10 Commandments in every Texas classroom. That's a good thing. But when you look through that, those same 10 Commandments, he can't even follow the 4th and the 9th in particular. For those of you that don't know, it's the lies and the adultery. All right. Now, I don't know what else to tell you about this, about what's coming. I do not want kinetic fights between Americans. I want to keep our ideological differences at the ballot box where they belong. But it's going to get kinetic because the other side is going to take it there. They prove it time after time. So my last piece of advice is to buy copious amounts of bullets and food and be ready. So let's talk about this weekend. All right, we had who's all right.
This is me, Mr. Lands.
Mr. Lands, don't talk until we call on you, please. One more interruption and you're down. All right, now let's talk about what happened this weekend. The shooter has been identified as Cole Thomas Allen, 31, of Torrance, California. All right, at the I guess it's the White House Correspondents' dinner. All right. He decided that he was going to go in and kill the president. He was caught near the magnetometers, you know, the little metal detector that you walk through. And he had previously distributed a manifesto talking about his kill list, which prioritized Trump officials from highest ranking to lowest. His intent was to target President Trump and his administration, except for Kash Patel. I find that very curious. I don't know why he would do that. Now, is that because he's serving the left by doing nothing? I really don't know, but I'm curious as to why he excluded Patel. Is it because of the color of his skin? Because this guy seemed to be highly motivated by that. Now, the shooter donated to Harris for president via ActBlue. He was apprehended despite the reports that he was taken into custody. And when he was taken into custody, he apparently had a shotgun, a handgun, and several knives. There were no injuries to President Trump or any of his guests. Now, obviously, they're doing a better job than they were before. Remember, we were told that the crooks had no social media profile. Well, this guy had an extensive social media profile, and they released it quickly. Now, I don't know if that's because they couldn't kill it quickly or not, but it all got out. Now, the crazy thing about this guy is he's just appears to be an ordinary Democrat. I think he's quite the normal for them now. He has been conditioned over the past decade by left-wing media and radical left NGOs to where he actually acted on it. All right. There is a toxic ecosystem based on lies being told by the left. All right. President Trump has been labeled, and I could show you a graph where it spikes all the time, a fascist and a Nazi. And it crested right around the time that he was elected, and then it continued for a few months after, and then they took it down a notch. Now, if you had a chance to go back in time and kill Hitler, would you do it? Yeah, I would. I absolutely would. So by them labeling him Hitler, they are justifying in their mindset the ability to harm the elected president of the United States. Now, this is a psychological operation, and it doesn't stop. We see it time after time after time. I mean, think about it. The entire media complex has been trying to delegitimize President Trump since he came down the escalator. I mean, it's honestly been ridiculous what this man has had to endure in terms of publicity. And I would say that, I can't believe it, except it happened on a much, much less degree to me. So President Trump, they have got to stop calling him a Nazi. Now, we cannot restrict speech. Cannot do it. But we got to call it out when it actually happens. All right. I see your note, Dr. A. Thank you. So the question I have really is two things. I think we need to move to a point where the president and the vice president are never in the same area. It is too critical that the elected government of the United States continue. Especially after we lose in the midterms, the number 3 person for the presidency would be the Speaker of the House. And that will probably be a Democrat. So therefore, you cannot have the president and the vice president in the same area. I anticipate that the left is going to continue to escalate their violence. I'm honestly surprised that they have not started wearing suicide vests. And I'm really surprised they haven't tried VBIEDs. Now, granted, the routes of presidential motorcades are classified and should absolutely be, but there's only so many ways you can get from A to B. And, a student of history, most presidents have probably traveled to most cities. They would know what routes they've taken before. So I hope the Secret Service is upping its game. The third potential attack, and one I didn't write down, is, if it was me, I would try a mass swarm of drones. Again, now I am certain that the Secret Service has some protection, but I am really, really concerned that President Trump is going to be taken out prior to the end of his term, because I think it's only escalating. We also see this demonization of conservative Americans at the local level. They actually call anybody that wants to defend our culture Nazis, and they do it with a sneering superiority complex that honestly drives me insane. Now, I know I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I'm not the dullest either, and I've found many, many idiot Democrats. All right. So a recent Marist poll, October 2025, found that 28% of Democrats agree that they may have to resort to violence to get the country back on track. 28%. Now, that number amongst Republicans is usually in single digits, 6 to 9%. So it's not like we don't have a few. Now, I've actually seen polls where it's more, where it's in the low 40s for the Democrats. And so I kind of wonder, is there a path back from this? You know, I don't really understand how the country united again after the Civil War. Will it really take another civil war to make them see what war looks like, what it does? I mean, they have no concept of what a real Nazi is, what real fascism is, what real war would look like. I mean, and I think that's because they played too many video games, too many smart bombs. They don't see the ripping. They don't smell the iron in the blood. I just have to wonder, you know, when are we going to come together, or can we come together as a nation? You know, I also, and again, I have to check myself, because it's easy for me to demonize them in the same way. All right. I want to say that they're the fascists. Okay. And honestly, I think they are. But what's crazy is they don't see it. So let's look at the tenets of the actual Nazis themselves. The National Socialist German Workers' Party. Did they believe in socialism? Check. Did they believe in locking up their political opponents? Check. Did they believe in a nationalized healthcare system? Check. What about censorship? Check. Gun control? Check. How about selecting rather than electing leaders? Kamala Harris, maybe ring a bell? Check. So, my question for my two co-hosts, all right, and Mr. Lance, you got dropped because you opened your mic again, all right, is what is the solution to the violence on the left? To me, it isn't violence on the right, all right? It is education, and we have got to convince these people to start speaking up. You know, if their leaders would come out and say there is no place for political violence, it would help, but they don't do it. So, Southern, what are your thoughts? Is this going to get worse, and how would you solve it?
So I think it is going to get a lot worse. And after reading his quote unquote manifesto, I think it's deeper than we actually think it is. And it's affected a lot more of them. Because if you read it, it reads into he's been indoctrinated through the education system. And I fear that there's a lot more of them than we know about. And even when you talk to the Gen Zers, you'll hear from them how schooling went. And it's not good, Larry. And I have no solutions to this because I don't know it right now.
I agree with you. It's a difficult thing because I don't ever want to restrict speech. You know, having had my speech restricted, you know, lost my First Amendment rights, I understand how precious that is. What about you, Dr. A? Do you have a solution?
No, I don't, except we need to go back and hold schools responsible. I mean, honestly, it has to start at the schools. Teachers should only be allowed to teach approved curricula, and if they discuss their political views or if they promote any type of violence, they need to be fired immediately. Politicians, no more of this, you can say what you want because you're not held responsible. This jerk is in Ted Lieu's district, and Ted Lieu is known to speak the words that this man spoke. So politicians also need to be held accountable. Politics is not supposed to be blood sport. Amen. Period.
All right, so you say hold them accountable. How would you hold them accountable? I don't disagree with you, but again, so if I start throwing them in jail for their speech, I'm becoming the very thing that I don't want to become. That's the problem. Go ahead, Southern.
When we're talking about the teachers, you fire them.
Oh, the
you
teachers,
take away
yes.
the teacher teaching license. Yeah, that's who she was referring to, was the teachers, because they're the ones teaching this in the classrooms, and they're not going by the curriculum. This is not free speech when you're indoctrinating children.
I'm with you on that.
And that's who she was speaking of.
Okay, but let's we've all seen Maxine Waters calling for violence. We've seen other Democratic congressmen and women. I mean, Chuck Schumer. They've sown the wind. It's time for them to reap the whirlwind, or something along that. That quote is not exact. Forgive me. So when do we kick them out of Congress for doing things like that? Researcher, glad to have you back in the show. Tap, glad to have you. Go ahead, sir. You've got your hand up.
Hello. Good morning, Larry. Morning. Colonel, when you were talking about the mainstream media and the psychological operation, the politicians are involved in this operation. Right, they've been encouraging the violence, as Dr. Angela said. There's been so many clips of them, talking about pushing back and encouraging. Even what happened to Charlie Kirk, it's the same thing. They're conditioning people to think that Donald Trump is a king, to think that he is, all things that he's not, and know it's leading to violence. So I think you're right. We have to put a stop to this. We can't love when people are encouraging violence, right? So. That's kind of my hard stop. I'm a pacifist, so I really don't dislike to see all this going on. But I think the psychological operation is a huge part of it, right? When we look at what SPLC was doing, they even added Charlie Kirk to one of their targeting lists. So I think this sort of activity where they're branding people with certain labels is encouraging, persons who don't really have a grasp of what's really going on. We're falling for all of these narratives. They are being encouraged to violent activity. And I'll leave it there, But this is a great conversation. Thank you so much for having me.
All right. So, again, if they're doing that, do you give them a warning and then boot them from the body? Or do you rely on the voters to take them out? Because, again, the rules are set up to where a challenger is always going to be handicapped financially. I don't have to tell you that, Dr. A. You know that better than I do. So as a hopeful congresswoman, what would you like to see happen to your fellow Congress people that advocate for violence against the other party?
I think the first time it's done, they get a strong warning and maybe removal from different committees. If it happens a second time, they should be removed from Congress. They're not fit to serve.
I think you're absolutely right. I do think it has to be, again, we've got to see action on this. It's almost like they're children. If you don't discipline your child with the little things, then you're going to have to discipline with them with the big things. Again, I go back to Starship Troopers, one of my favorite books. We oftentimes, when you have a juvenile that commits a crime, we throw them in juvenile detention for a while where they learn to be better criminals usually. Then we let them out, and then all of a sudden they magically turn 18, and the same things that they were getting minor punishments for now are going to be draconian punishments. Whereas if we had taken care of it at a younger age, at a lower level, perhaps they would not have escalated to the situation that they're in. And it's the same way. And yes, I am calling the Democratic Party a group of children. You are ill-behaved right now. You are damaging our country. Your party is doing it. Conservatives are not advocating for violence. We didn't say after you murdered Charlie Kirk that we need to kill all of you on the left. We didn't say that. When you tried to kill our president not once, twice, 3 times, we didn't say you all need to be rounded up. We're not saying these things because we're good Americans, and you aren't. All right, go ahead, conservative. You just dropped. I was going to come to you. Get him back up, and we'll get him there. All right. I'm about ready to move to the next topic, but that's a shame. All right. I want to talk again about a war that I remember because it was really, I'm going to say, other than Vietnam, the first war that I paid attention to. And that was Great Britain fighting for the Falkland Islands. Now, it was a war in the early 80s. You had the Iron Lady, Margaret Thatcher, the female Reagan of her time. You had the Argentinians take over, a military junta, the islands. And again, it was just very shocking for me to actually see what I'm going to call naked aggression. You know, again, at the time I was very, very young, I think 14 or 15. All right, conservative, go ahead. You had something to say on the last topic, and then we'll come back to the Falklands or the Malvinas. Go ahead.
Hey, thank you very much for having me up.
You bet.
And unfortunately, I don't have something that's going to happen overnight. We have to, unfortunately, my perspective on this is the same perspective as people with a long-term financial gains and stuff like that, looking for the end result of something usually takes time. We got to be vigilant like they were on changing our school system. They did it from within. It took a long time to do it, and now they're in charge. And unfortunately, that's kind of the same perspective we have to have. We have to start there where we have to get the people in our school board changed. We have to get the teachers a different take on what they need to be teaching versus what they're teaching now. And all this takes a long time, unfortunately. I don't know. I mean, unless overnight or the next election process, we have a big turnover everywhere to where the politicians that might be thinking more like us, more conservative, and kind of grew up in a time where school only taught education that was useful versus the education that isn't. Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of, you know, I don't know. I mean, other than violence and taking over someone's will without their wanting it to happen, other than that, I don't see us getting anything back until we change the whole mechanism of how our kids are being taught and all that.
No,
unless we all.
You're right. You're absolutely right. We have got to get control of the school boards. You know, recently they tried to, believe it or not, there were Islamists that were trying to force the State Board of Education to put in that the Alamo was actually an Islamic institution. I'm not kidding. They really wanted to rewrite history that way. Fortunately, enough conservatives went to Austin to curb stomp that. I mean, look up at the history of the Alamo. It was clear a Franciscan friar, I believe, actually built the place. But I know it was a good Catholic person. All right. Let's get back to again, thank you, sir, for your comment. And I apologize for the disjointed nature of this, but I want to get back to the Falklands versus the Malvinas. The Argentinians called them the Malvinas. The British called them the Falklands. Now, last month, the Russian Navy executed an operation in the North Atlantic. Why were they able to do that? Well, Big Daddy, the U.S. Navy, is a little busy right now in the Indian Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea and the Arabian Gulf. So that's why they were able to do this. Now, they did this right on the doorstep of British waters. They used an Aquila class nuclear submarine as a decoy, sending covert spy ships to map our underwater infrastructure, including internet cables and pipelines. All right. Now, they also recently, the British were exposed when Iranian missiles and drones targeted British bases. They targeted Diego Garcia, and they also targeted, I believe, their base in Cyprus. I could be wrong on that. All right. And so the British responded by sending, are you ready for this? One vessel, the HMS Dragon, to assist in air defense. And so that ship is still on station, right? No, it had to go back in April for maintenance. So they can't even respond with one ship. Okay, they are a pathetic group of humans that are relying solely on the U.S. for their security. And then they stab us in the back. Now, Argentine president and Trump ally, Javier Milei, has launched a new effort recently to claim control of the Falkland Islands. Now, this is reigniting a long-standing dispute with the United Kingdom, which, as I said, led to war. Now, the U.S. has always been officially neutral on the Falklands, but let's be honest. We've always protected this special relationship. All right? We've leaned in favor of the British for decades, and that's why the Argentinians haven't made a move. Now, the British media is now accusing President Trump of shifting towards the Argentinian side. Why shouldn't we? I'm asking. I mean, they are asserting, the British media, that President Trump is plotting to help Milei reacquire the islands. If I was him, I would do it. And here's why I would do it. Well, I'll get to that in just a second. Now, I'll be honest with you. If the president did change American stance on the Falkland Islands, it would actually be to really be truly neutral instead of just neutral, pretending to be. So in other words, if Argentina wanted to take the islands, we wouldn't do anything about it this time. And the British wouldn't be able to do anything about it either. Currently, the Royal Navy only has 63 active vessels in its fleet, compared to nearly 300 in the U.S. Navy. Now, I remember a time when we had a 600-ship Navy. Now, that said, the word active is misleading because at any given time, over 50% of British naval vessels are under repair in dry dock, which means they only have 20 to 30 ships ready to fight under current conditions. I don't think they even have their own aircraft carrier anymore. I think they share one with France. So, strategic assessments indicate that Britain would need every one of its vessels to go to war with Argentina, where they try and guard their islands. Now, the British do have one patrol ship in the area, the HMS Medway, but given their lack of military readiness as well as hostility to the Trump administration, the conditions are very ripe for them to lose the territory they fought so hard to keep in 1982. Now, during that war, they relied on extensive United States intel and logistical support. They used our spy satellites and our satellite imagery, which we provided them. They stole from what was called the WRM, War Requisite Munitions, American AIM-9s. I can't remember which variant of the AIM-9. It was either the Lima or the Mike. All right. But they weren't supposed to take that down there. That was reserved for NATO use only. But they took it down there to fight the Argentinian Air Force. And there have always been rumors about the U.S. refueling their jets to help get them to the carriers, as well as there was a massive Vulcan bombing raid. And there have always been rumors that the United States refueled those bombers on the way down. So let's talk about the special relationship for a second. Why should we continue to honor it? They are basically a caliphate at this point. Argentina is not. They're the only nation in history to invade and burn the White House. I have a long memory. Now, in my opinion, current Britain is forsaking the Magna Carta for Muhammad, the Big Ben for the burqa, and fish and chips for halal meat. So I got to ask the question, what do we get from Britain that we still need? I don't think we really get anything that we need from them. I like them being the unsinkable aircraft carrier in case the Germans get uppity. But now that the Germans are really a Turkish sub-state, I don't know. Why do we need to be there? Southern, what are your thoughts? And then I'll come to you, Dr. A.
I don't know, Larry. I don't know on all of this.
Well, I know you basically want to stay home. Rule, don't, God almighty. Listen, guys, just raise your hand. I'm going to get to you, but the co-hosts always get first privilege. Rule, I'll come to you as soon as Dr. A talks. I promise. Now, again, don't make me Mr. Lynch you and drop you. So, Dr. A, what about you? What are your thoughts?
We get nothing.
All right. I'm kind of with you on that. Now, London's got a lot of banking systems, but I'd rather those be in New York. So, all right, Mr. Rule, your turn, sir.
I'd say we get a clean decoupling from the UK, right?
Yep.
So that includes Iran, that includes everywhere where they have used other countries as proxies to create instability so they can profit off of it. And so we get a clean decoupling. And right now their interests are protect themselves from Russia, protect their money flow in Iran. And so I think it's the whole Western Hemisphere first mindset that Trump's going, including Greenland, is strategic because of the Islamic invasion in Europe.
Good point.
He sees us fighting again in Europe probably within 30 to 50 years. It's a giant shift of assets, right? That's the way I see it.
Here's the interesting question. If we did have to fight again, do you know what's crazy about this? I think you're going to have the Russia and the United States fighting Europe.
Yep, and China.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
All right, so you kind of brought up oil, so let's talk about oil for a second. All right, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said on April 24th that the United States will not renew the sanctions waivers that enabled buyers to take delivery of Iranian and Russian crude already loaded on tankers at sea. I don't know why we're letting them do that anyway. All right, now Bessent said a one-time license covering Iranian oil on the water would not be extended, calling it totally off the table. The parallel waiver for Russian oil and petroleum products will also be allowed to end, he said. So the only reason I can think of including Russia in that is that they are cooperating with Iran and helping keep Iran afloat. Now, he said, we will not be renewing the general license on Russian oil, and we will not be renewing the general license on Iranian oil. That was oil that was on the water prior to March 11th, so that has all been used. Now, the Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control also sanctioned a Chinese petrochemical company. It's called Hingley, and it was a plant that could process roughly $400,000 barrels a day. Hingley has played an outsized role in purchasing crude oil from Iran's armed forces, the Treasury said in a statement. Scott Bessent also disclosed the seizure of about $344 million in cryptocurrency held in crypto wallets the government has tied to Tehran. Now, he predicted earlier in the week that Iran's oil sector was close to collapse. He said Karg Island, the terminal that handles roughly 90% of Iran's crude exports, would run out of storage in a matter of days, meaning producers would have to shut down fragile wells that are hard and costly to restart. Now, Dr. A sent me a video right before the start of the show, and apparently, and I did not know this, you'd think as a Texan I would have learned it at some point, that if you cap an oil well and then you restart it, productivity is never the same, and they're going to have to start capping some of their oil wells quickly. Now, I know it's not sexy, but economics wins wars. Strangle the regime economically is honestly, to strangle the regime economically is the only solution other than boots on the ground. And I'm telling you, if we put our boots on the ground, one, we get devastated in the midterms. Two, the Iranian people would unite against us. So that is a lose-lose for us if we put, I'm not talking a few special forces. I'm sure they're there already. But we cannot have, the 1st Infantry Division or the 10th Mountain actually go into Iran. Now, it's also driving countries to purchase oil from us. For once, a Middle Eastern war is actually working in our favor, which is very, very hard for me to believe. Dr. A, did I miss anything on that video that you sent me? And then we'll come to you, Rule.
No.
Okay, go ahead, Rule.
Yeah, I was going to say it puts all the pressure on UK, right? Because now they can't go to Russia. China's been dependent on Venezuela and Iran, and then they send fentanyl precursors, in exchange, and then Iran gets the nuclear piece. So right now, it is left with the whole NATO being viewed as a proxy by Russia. It literally has Europe's pants down, right? And now we are going to be the de facto broker of oil, and we're going to use that brokering to liberate people in countries all over and give them their economies back, because they were hijacked by cartels, terrorist organizations, and governments, corrupt governments, and the UK has been involved in all of that.
I absolutely agree with you there. I think you're seeing President Trump weaponizing oil in a big way because it definitely takes care of our primary problem, which is China. Go ahead, researcher.
Hey, thank you so much, Colonel. I just want to add a little caveat. We're talking about these different nations, but remember the corrupt deep state governments that have basically controlled the direction, the policy direction, the foreign policy direction of these nations. And that system is being dismantled. first in the United States, and now you're seeing global relations realign. So I think Ruled is right. I'm enjoying the conversation. Thank you so much.
All right, quick question for you, I'm pushing back. Where do you see any dismantling of the deep state in the United States? I mean, I haven't seen a single arrest. I mean, President Trump is doing what he thinks is good for America, and it's right, and it is good. But I feel like we have this monster lurking in the closet, and we're not doing anything about it. So why do you think he's dismantling the deep state in America?
Well, I agree. There is a monster in the closet, right? Mm-hmm. And the system that they set up is rather vast and wide. But I'll give you a recent example. Take the SPLC.
Okay.
This is a deep state organization.
Fair enough. Yes, sir. You're right.
100%. Right? And, we're seeing grand jury indictments now being unveiled on that. So I have a little hope that there are things happening in the background, especially when we, reflect on what John Solomon has said. And he's been pretty credible on his sourcing.
I know. I wish that half the things he said are coming were actually coming, but he was right about SPLC. So that you're right. If we can get ActBlue and the SAVE Act prior to the November elections, maybe we'll have a chance of restoring the country. Okay, Rule, give me about 15 seconds. I'll give you about 15 seconds, and then I need to move to the next topic.
Yeah, I was just going to say he nailed it, right? It's the money network, right? Trump is taking down the money networks all the way. That includes the propaganda machine coming out of the UK and, like you said, the SPLC. So the problem is the media and us, we move too fast. We're chasing the next prize or the next topic. But the justice system is moving so much slower, right? They're having a hard time getting these cases to stick in these certain states. And that's the hard part. So I think it's coming. And in the meantime, he's tearing down their financial networks.
Well, I hope you're right. I definitely hope you're right. And in the interest of moving to the next topic, I won't dispute it, although I would argue that justice moved very quick if you were a January 6er. All right, let's talk about the end of truth. Now, I've often cited Orwell. If you have not read 1984, you've got to read it. That's just all there is to it. There's another book out that I have not read, which I just learned about today, so got to give me a little time. But, in 1942, after fighting in the Spanish Civil War, all right, Orwell wrote, all right, it wasn't just, I saw great battles reported where there had been no fighting and complete silence where hundreds of men had been killed. I saw troops who had fought bravely denounced as cowards and traitors, and others who had never seen a shot fired held as the heroes of imaginary victories. I saw newspapers in London retelling those lies, and eager intellectuals build emotional superstructures over events that had never happened. And I think we see a lot of that as well. Now, Friedrich Hayek is not a household name, and I just learned about him today, but he wrote a book in 1944 called The Road to Serfdom. All right, and in that book, he said that economic control by the government does not remain confined to the economy. Once the state directs production and prices, it inevitably reaches into thought, expression, and belief. For Hayek, the danger of socialism was not only material impoverishment, as we saw in the USSR, but the steady expansion of intellectual control. It is not enough that everybody should be forced to work for the same ends, Hayek wrote. It is essential that people should come to regard them as their own ends. And I think we see a lot of that in the education system, which has produced these Gen Zers, which are advocating for political violence, which are supporting socialist and Islamic candidates. So, in doing so, the government inevitably begins to decide which opinions and values align with its plan, rewarding and amplifying voices, a Twitter blue check perchance, that comply with it, while punishing, suppressing, and silencing those that do not, shadow banning, like I was for a long time, and I think still am. Now, the COVID-19 pandemic was a vast economic experiment, and I would argue an experiment by the government in what we are willing to let them do. The federal government issued a wide array of public health recommendation that soon became dogma. All right, to question whether or not a mask that we knew Anyone with a brain knew even an N95 mask could not stop the coronavirus. Yet how many times did we have to wear masks? How many times did we have to put them on our face? 6 foot, social distancing. What in the hell is that? Did Fauci just pull that out of his anus at one point in time? I mean, it had no basis in science. I am science, says Fauci. Now, if you said, hey, this is garbage, you were going to be censored, which I believe Dr. A was. You are going to be accused of spreading misinformation when you're telling the truth. Scientific debate gave way to official decree, and they succeeded in doing that. And many who questioned the plan or resisted it lost their jobs or were booted from platforms. As governments assert control over economic and social life, facts and evidence become subordinated to political goals. That is the America that we lived in under Joe Biden. It is an idea that Orwell illustrated vividly. That's why you have to read that book. All right, when the party refused to accept that Winston Smith's claim that 2 + 2 did actually equal 4. Once science has to serve not truth, but the interest of a class, a community, or a state, he wrote, the sole task of argument and discussion is to vindicate and spread still further the beliefs by which the whole life of the community is directed. All right, so basically what he's saying is, once science becomes corrupted, everything is corrupted. Global warming comes rapidly to mind, or is it climate change? What flavor is it today? We had a tornado in Texas the other day. Whoops, 1 second. I have to get my that. Oh, my apologies. We had a tornado in Texas the other day. Is that a result of climate change? All right, think about the other hoaxes that we've had to endure as a people. The whole Russia collusion hoax, and now the Very Fine People hoax, the SPLC racism hoax. You know, I can honestly tell you, I do not know a single person that judges somebody by the color of their skin and not the content of their character. And yet the SPLC was paying a grand dragon of the Ku Klux Klan. It's unbelievable what they have done. The 2020 election, it's coming to light. We now know that Georgia was stolen, Arizona was stolen. We still haven't got to the bottom of Pennsylvania. We all saw with our own eyes the poster boards going up to obscure the counting centers in Michigan. And we let it happen. We let the presidency be stolen. And we're having to come to grips with that. Okay, it is the quest for objective truth that made me start talking on this platform. And so I want to tell the state now and forevermore, you can line me against the wall and shoot me. 2 + 2 = 4. Now, for those of you that haven't read it, let me tell you what the interrogator was telling Winston when he was struggling to maintain objective truth. Sometimes, Winston, sometimes they are 5, he is told while he is being tortured in the ministry of love. Sometimes they are 3. Sometimes they are all of them at once. You must try harder. No, I must not try harder. I will not yield to collectivist thought, and I do not want you to do it either. All right. While it starts out trying to make reason supreme, collectivist thought, it always ends by destroying reason because it misconceives the process on which the growth of reason depends. We are at a point where even our own eyes may soon become untrustworthy given AI and deep fakes. But the truth has to come out. The one failure, the one that I hold the Trump administration accountable for so far is to not reestablish truth. All right, now research, you did good bringing the SPLC to mind. That is an attempt to reestablish truth. But let's be honest, we've got to lance the boil on the other things I've talked about. We have got to get to the bottom of the COVID hoax. We've got to hold Fauci accountable. We have got to get into the DOJ and rip them apart and restore our justice system. This is our last chance. Epstein, 2020, the J6 hoax. If we lose the next election, we will have had our last free election. And the Democrats will make Orwell in room 101 in the Ministry of Love seem tame. Trust me when I say this, it's coming. They have plans for us. Somewhere deep in Mark Elias's little heart burns a desire to be Obergruppenführer, Elias. It's coming. The solution is to win at the ballot box. We have to win, have to. All right. I know I've preached on that a lot. Southern, have you read 1984?
I have.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
It's a great book.
Is there something that I'm missing? Some truth that I did not take out of that book?
I believe you covered it all.
All right, Dr. A, I know you probably read it, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, guys, you got to read it. Researcher, have you read that book?
I've listened to the audio.
Fair enough. The book is always better, but I'll give you that. Even the movie is not terrible. All right. Speaking of movies and terrible things, I want to talk about King Charles III. I'll be honest with you. Queen Elizabeth, I think, should have been the last queen, but that's a story for a different day. So, Dr. A, tell us with your best sultry voice now that you're all needing to drink your iced tea, how King Charles III and Queen Camilla are doing on their U.S. state visit, or how they will be doing.
I will do my best, and I will hang up if I have to cough.
Okay.
King Charles and Queen Camilla, I don't even like saying that. Their 4-day U.S. state visit is underway starting today, marking the first British monarch state visit to the U.S. since Queen Elizabeth II in 2007. It's explicitly timed to celebrate the 250th anniversary of American independence and to reaffirm the U.S.-UK special relationship,
Which I want
which
to
makes
destroy.
me go, "Boo." Exactly. Yeah. I hope Trump puts his foot down. Anyway, Buckingham Palace confirmed yesterday that the trip would still go ahead as planned after discussions with the U.S. and UK officials following the attempted, the shooting and the attempted assassination. There are minor operational security adjustments to one or two events, but the core schedule remains intact. The palace noted the king and queen are most grateful to those working at pace and are looking forward to the visit. Heightened security is in place, but the White House and palace emphasized continuity. So key itinerary highlights. Today they arrive. They'll be welcomed at the White House by President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump. Private afternoon tea and meeting with the Trumps, possible garden party, ceremonial military review, or related events. Queen Camilla has engagements focused on domestic abuse, violence against women's campaigns. April 28th, there will be a formal state banquet at the White House. King Charles is expected to address a joint session of Congress, the first by a British monarch since Queen Elizabeth II in 1991. Then they're also expected to stop in New York at the 9/11 Memorial to view community projects, cultural events like the Winnie the Pooh, I don't know what.
Centenary.
I don't even know what that is. And Virginia, the National Park, Farm, and Appalachian performances. Again, it's the first visit in quite some time. And obviously, the visit is coming at a tense time in U.S.-UK relations, which have been strained by differences over the ongoing Iran conflict. UK has technically not joined the U.S. actions. They've publicly spoken against it. There's also issues with trade, NATO commitments, and other issues like the Ukraine, Greenland. It's viewed as a soft power diplomacy, with King Charles seen as a rare European figure with personal rapport with Trump from Trump's prior UK visits, and the goal is to reaffirm and renew ties.
Now, first of all, I don't think King Charles is a very effective speaker. I'm actually I guarantee you there are going to be a lot of gaffes in his speech to Congress, but I don't like him even being given that honor. Have we ever given I guess we have let Queen Elizabeth speak in 1991.
1991. Yep.
But I mean, to me, we should not honor a king. We are a republic. The prime minister should be welcome, not this one, but the the previous prime ministers. And I don't like it. I don't like it a little bit. Now, the Winnie the Pooh centenary. So I guess that would be about 100 years old. I mean, Christopher Robin, the Eeyore. Let's see, what other Piglet? Who else am I missing from the Winnie the Pooh galaxy?
Kanga.
Ah, okay. Kanga. I forgot about Kanga. All right. So, researcher, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Colonel. Just a quick comment on the UK-US special relationship. The history of this is pretty interesting. It goes back to around before World War II started, around that time. And it has military aspects of it, intelligence aspects of it, economic support, and personal relationships, they say, also play a role in the special relationship. And the closeness of these relationships usually depend on the personal chemistry of the two countries' leaders. Now, I agree with the commentary as it relates to the direction that President Trump should take on this special relationship. It's not good for the United States, right? This relationship was actually created by, it looks like, the deep state system, right? And this is part of the British networks infiltrating the United States, the intelligence agencies, how they took over the CIA, right? It's all connected, right? Going back to World War II. But I'll leave it there.
All right, so I do want to talk about personal relationships. I will tell you, having served on the battlefield with British soldiers, I like them a lot. I really, they were the closest to us in terms of, I'm going to say, common values and common warfighting. And so I actually was given it was a small gift, but I helped some 4 or 5 commandos out. And so they gave me, their insignia and, one of their T-shirts, which was minor. And so I was pleased to do that. One of my friends, when I worked at Rockwell Collins, was a British Royal Marine named Paddy. He was from Northern Ireland. Good man. Really liked him as well. So you're right when it comes to personal relationships. Now, a lot of people don't know this historically, but the United States had a plan to attack the Royal Navy because we thought the Royal Navy was going to attack Venezuela to try and get their money back prior to World War I. All right. And so as recently as the early 1900s, we were planning war with Britain. All right. Now, obviously, World War I changed all of that. And then I'm re-listening to right now a podcast by Dan Carlin, I think this is his name, and it's Supernova in the East. And he talks about the fact that Winston Churchill slept the sleep of the thankful and delivered once he knew the United States was getting in the war because of the production figures. And he said America was going to grind Japan into a fine powder. All right, Britain has always used us as the arsenal of democracy. They needed our men in World War I. They needed our material and men in World War II, or they would not have been able to win, period. So, again, I think we've always given more in this relationship than we've gotten out of it. And so for us to ask for a little assistance in opening a strait where their oil comes through, not ours, and for them to snub their nose at us, well, it just doesn't sit well with me. Added to that, I believe over the weekend or maybe the past week, there was a British MP that told Starmer, Sharia is here in the UK and you're going to have to accept it as law. Again, that's where they are, and that's where the Muslims want to take the United States. So Britain, to me, the only value in maintaining a relationship with it is so that we can watch it decline into the caliphate and prevent it from occurring here. Go ahead, Rule.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that they're coming here. They need to mend the relationship. Starmer's obviously created a huge rift there, right? So they're going to come here and play some damage control. But that's what makes Greenland the topic, right? Like that's why Greenland is so important, because, like I said, they came out and said Germany's planning to build the biggest army in Europe by 2039. So if that gives you any indication as to where this is headed, if they can't stop that Islamic invasion, it's over. It's over.
No, you're absolutely right. And I was thinking about that, and we have the image of the Wehrmacht, a very successful German army, all right, and that they're not the same nation, okay? They're 40% Turkish. So that means 40% Middle Easterners are going to be occupying their army. 40% more targets for us. That's just the way I look at it. And that's based off of my experience fighting these clowns. Okay? Chechnyan's good. Average Afghani, clown. So, anyway.
It's almost like they're trying to occupy places that have nuclear abilities because they're cut off from having them, if that makes sense, right? So now if they can get in there and get into those secrets, or let's say they can flip Pakistan, we could end up being in the same situation in the near future very quickly.
Well, again, there's an election here in my town. We're doing our best to fight the caliphate. I think you're seeing serious efforts are underway to actually stand up against Islam in this country. But let's change the topic yet again. Dr. A, you got about 4 minutes. Walk us through what should I expect in terms of the weather. Now, I'll tell you, in Texas, we have a saying, if you don't like the weather, wait a minute and it'll change. So go ahead, Dr. A.
Well, we have been hit by some pretty extreme weather, and today is a warning for folks up in the Midwest. There's 40 to 50 plus million people across the Midwest, Mississippi Valley, and central U.S., Illinois, Missouri, St. Louis region, that are facing a multi-day storm with a threat level of 4 to 5, severe risk in spots. Today is supposed to be the peak day. Hazards include tornadoes, discrete supercells early with potential for strong, intense tornadoes, especially eastern Missouri into western central Illinois. Some forecasters note morning convection may limit northern Illinois, but heightened concerns farther south. Hail, very large, baseball to larger, up to 4-inch possible in strongest cells. Winds, damaging gusts of 60 to 80 plus miles per hour, transitioning to a squall line with destructive straight line winds later. Storms are expected, as I said, to peak today, St. Louis region and eastern Missouri, western Illinois. Initiation mid-afternoon around 4 p.m. local with supercells first. Highest tornado, large hail risk, then a line of storms into evening or night, bringing widespread wind damage. Okay. 20-plus school districts in St. Louis are dismissing early. The tornado warnings were already active this morning in parts of Illinois, and this is part of a rare multi-day severe stretch following earlier outbreaks. A cold front and strong shortwave are driving it.
Okay.
I can leave it there.
I've never seen a tornado in my 59 years on this earth. Never seen one live. I was in a movie theater in Iowa, and I got pulled into the little tornado shelter area, but that's about it. And there was one time I was flying for American Airlines, and I was parked on, and I say parked, I was on the taxiway getting ready to take off, but there were like 80 planes, and some clown said, I think a tornado is coming right towards us. And I was like, well, that's interesting, because none of us can do anything about it. So we shall see. I hope, I don't know about you guys, Dr. A in California or in Florida, do you guys actually have tornado sirens? We do here in Texas, and they test them, I think, noon Tuesdays, maybe noon Wednesdays. So that's a no from Southern.
We do not have sirens, but we had tornadoes last week in central California.
Wow. What about earthquake warnings? Anything
the
for
emergency broadcast system on our phones go off.
Okay. What about you? All right, Southern, go ahead. You have your hand up, ma'am?
Same thing. We get alerts through our phones or through local television. That's it. We don't have.
Yeah.
There's some areas that still have sirens, but there's not many.
Well, we still have the sirens, and I'm glad we do. But we also get the alert messages as well. So All right, I want to end today, and I want to thank everyone that's joined us and listened to us by going through a quote from George Orwell. All right, and it says, in the end, the party would announce that 2 and 2 made 5, and you would have to believe it. It was inevitable that they should make that claim sooner or later. The logic of their position demanded it, not merely the validity of experience, but the very existence of external reality was tacitly denied by their philosophy. The heresy of heresies was common sense. And what was terrifying was not that they would kill you for thinking otherwise, but that they might be right. For after all, how do we know that 2 and 2 make 4, or that the force of gravity works, or that the past is unchangeable, if both the past and the external world exist only in the mind, and if the mind itself is controllable, what then? Now, again, the heresy of heresies is common sense. I still have faith, as William Buckley said, in the common sense of the American people. So I'm telling you right now, you have to resist the siren song of democratic socialism. We must fight for this nation. You cannot sit on the sidelines. Get involved. Raise your children right. I mean, how many times did we hear people today talk about the schools? We let them have our schools, and I'm blaming we being Gen X because we were busy. We didn't pay attention to the crap that was drifting into our schools. And so now the millennials and Gen Zers that have been pumped out are our problem because we didn't stop it when it was early. Honestly, to be fair to us, we trusted the schools to keep putting out good people and good products because we had good schools and good products. So they slipped one in on us, but you people are wiser than us, and that's why I see the vast majority, not the vast majority, but I'm seeing a significant increase in homeschooling amongst Gen Zers. So again, I'm going to wrap it up for now. I want to tell everyone that I really appreciate you listening, that the time for common sense is now, the time to stick to the truth is now, the time to get involved is now. So, Dr. A, I hope you feel better, and good luck with your campaigning. And Southern, we'll talk again next week. God bless each and every one of you. Have a great day.